For Design 498, our students that are working on corrective action plan for your your internal audit from the ISO. Remember, we had a finding. It said that we weren't documenting the fact that we had received approvals and that we knew what the next step was, and that we were going through the steps that were identified as being necessary to create a product for our client. Did not say that we weren't doing them. It said we weren't documenting that we did them, at least not in a way that could be easily retrieved. So then you came up with some statements and some root causes, and last week you came up with a corrective action plan. So this week, if you make a plan and you implement it, normally you like to see if it was useful and it worked. I don't know about you, but many times in my career, I've identified a problem and I've solved a problem, but it was not the problem. And so my great solution didn't work out so well. A perfect example was that I had a product and the urethane kept falling off the outside of it when it was in operation. So I identified a problem that urethane doesn't bond to steel very well. So I solved that problem. And that problem was solved by making the internal parts urethane. Also, dual durometer. I got patents. We got all sorts of stuff. But it wasn't the problem. The problem was growth with temperature. And we weren't controlling the temperature right. So even after we did all that, we had failures. So what I identified was truly a problem, but not the problem. And of course, it was real easy for us to measure the problem. The measurement was customer complaints about pumps that didn't work. And we were hoping to get fewer of those customer complaints. So we decided, after we implemented this great idea, to count the number of customer complaints. That was our metric. And lo and behold, the customer complaints remained just as bad. So we knew that our great corrective action didn't work. It didn't correct what the real problem was. So that's your job now. You've come up with some sort of corrective action, and so now we're going to solve it. So I'm going to do just really quick. Here is, as an example, a corrective action that might have been made, which would be document steps that need to be taken and are taken on Discord in a separate channel. So that might be a cool, let me make that a little bigger. So that might be your corrective action that you've done. We're going to make a new channel, and we're going to see what we're going to document the steps there. So what would you measure? Things that I would measure would be how many items are recorded and how many items should be recorded. And then, of course, your metric is the percent of steps that are recorded properly and are retrievable. Well, if you put them on Discord, they're automatically retrievable. We know that. So those would be the two measurements that feed this metric. Number of steps that are recorded, spelled wrong, properly, and are retrievable, percent. Okay, and so to meet that metric, we would do this and this. So, but I might have a different one. I might have a different thing to talk about. I might say create a drop down in the transmittal so that it is easy to record the next step and completion of the previous step. So that's maybe a different type of thing that got suggested as an example. Okay, so that would be, this would be creating a new location that is very easy to get the information out of, right? We know that getting the information out of Discord is really just a real quick data dump. And this is what, but maybe it's not as easy to do. And here's one that's like really easy to do. Maybe it would take some work to get that data dump, but I think it would be pretty easy to do a data extract out of those. I think one of our cool programmers could almost in their sleep write a program that would pull this information out of our transmittals. So then what would we do? We'd probably copy these over. Let's see if I can do that. Can I copy those? Do I have a copy command on this? Duplicate. So here I end up with the same measurements and the same metrics. So that's kind of an easy way to go. So this is what your job is this week. And this is going to be our next to last one, by the way. We're going to have one more submittal. And that's going to be for your final exam. And that's where I'm just going to chat with you about what you think. I'm going to look at all these things and I'm going to put a little prospective corrective action together. And I'm just going to chat with you about it. That's your final exam. So to pass your final exam, you basically have to show up. That's really cool. And there is some paperwork to do for the end of the semester. So that'll be the other bulk of it. But this is what I'd like you to do this week. Put a little bit of thought. How will we measure your corrective action plan? Something to measure. Those are measurements. These are measurements. And this is the metric, the thing that we're going to report, the number that gets reported. Now, we haven't said yet what a good number is. It says that this is successful. And I might chat with you about that, of what you think the number ought to be. But that's not as important as creating the metric. Sometimes if you think ahead of time of what a satisfactory one is, people make bogus metrics that they know that they can meet that don't really tell them the story. So I'd like you to really think about this a little bit. Piece of cake, very easy. Hopefully this will make sense. As always, feel free to get a hold of me if you need to. I've got a calendar here if you need to get to the calendar. I posted it for you on the Canvas site, and you can just check a time and go, I don't know what you're talking about, and you can just make a time and meet with me very briefly if you need to. There we go. That's what I'm looking for.